The Interstellar Military Academy stood as a testament to galactic cooperation, a gleaming complex of adaptive architecture that could accommodate cadets from over 300 species across the known universe. Its reputation was unmatched, its standards legendary, and its competition fierce. Only the best from each world ever receive an invitation. Alex Rider stepped through the grand entrance, his shoulders squared despite the countless eyes that followed his every move. The whispers weren't subtle. Neither were the stares, the clicking mandibles, the rustling of appendages, or the occasional derisive hoot. He was used to it, the first and only human in this year's IMA class. The primate actually showed up. A deep voice rumbled from a cluster of multi-limbed cadets. "I thought Earth declined their slot again. It'll wash out in a week." Another responded, this one with iridescent scales glistening under the Academy's adaptive lighting. "They always do. Fragile bones. No redundant organs. Can't even breathe properly outside their atmosphere without tech assistance." Alex kept walking, face neutral. He'd been briefed extensively about what to expect. Humans were the newest addition to the Galactic Alliance, their technology considered primitive by comparison, their physiology deemed unimpressive. Most species had evolved on higher gravity worlds, had natural armor, multiple limbs, or specialized sensory organs. Humanity's only selling point, according to most Alliance species, was their unusual creativity and adaptive intelligence, qualities that many felt were insufficient for serious military consideration. Commander Theron watched from his elevated office, 6 eyes narrowed in assessment. A veteran of 3 interstellar conflicts, the imposing Navorian had served as Academy commander for 15 cycles, overseeing the training of the Alliance's finest. When Earth had been granted a permanent slot at the Academy, he'd voiced his concerns directly to the Galactic Council. "They're simply not built for this," he'd argued. "Their homeworld barely reaches 1G. Their bones fracture under minimal pressure. Their combat history is entirely interspecies. It's setting them up for failure and wasting valuable resources." But politics had prevailed. Humans were officially Alliance members now, and entitled to representation. So here was this soft, pink-skinned creature, walking through his academy as if he belonged. "Commander," his aide entered with a datapad. "The human's file, as requested." Theron took it, examining the sparse information. Alex Rider, 24 Earth years. Top percentile in Earth's Space Force. Nothing exceptional noted in the physical metrics. He tossed the pad aside. Predictable. Down in the training arena, Drill Sergeant Quark was putting new recruits through initial assessments. The 8-limbed Draconian veteran had broken more promising cadets than anyone in Academy history and took perverse pride in identifying weaknesses. When a human entered his arena, Quark's facial spines flared in anticipation. "So you're the Earth specimen." Quark circled Alex, noting the lack of visible armor, the mere 2 arms, the apparent softness. "You're my combat battalion." "Lucky you." "Lucky indeed, Sergeant," Alex replied evenly, standing at perfect attention. Quark's upper left arm shot out without warning. A lightning-fast jab aimed at Alex's midsection. Not hard enough to cause serious damage, but certainly enough to knock the wind out of an unprepared cadet. To his mild surprise, the human pivoted slightly, the blow glancing off. "Reflexes, at least," Quark muttered, unimpressed. "Equipment bay is that way. Find your quarters, stow your gear. Training begins at dawn cycle." He turned away, already dismissing the human from his thoughts. Just another washout in waiting. Alex made his way to the equipment bay, collected his gear allocation, and followed the digital guide to his assigned quarters. The room was Spartan but adaptable, with environmental controls that could be customized for diverse physiological needs. He was setting down his regulation pack when the door slid open. A tall, sinuous cadet with pale blue skin and 4 articulated arms leaned against the doorframe. Behind him stood 3 others. A hulking figure with rock-like skin, a being composed of what appeared to be semi-solid plasma, contained in an exoskeleton, and a quadrupedal cadet with reflective scales. "I'm Zyler," the blue-skinned cadet said, his tone casual but eyes cold. "4th-year specialist." Combat Division Leader. His gaze swept over Alex with undisguised contempt. Heard we had a human this cycle. Thought I'd see for myself. Alex, Ryder. Alex extended a hand, the traditional human greeting. Zyler ignored it. We have a tradition here at the Academy. Every new species gets a welcome. He smiled, revealing rows of small, sharp teeth. Call it an initiation. I appreciate the thought, Alex responded, but I'm fine with the standard orientation. It wasn't a request, the rock-like cadet rumbled. Academy tradition is sacred. Alex assessed them quickly. 4-1, unknown capabilities confined space. Not ideal odds, but he'd faced worse in training. What did you have in mind? He asked. Nothing complicated, Zyler's smile widened. Just a small adjustment to help you feel at home. After they left, Alex examined his quarters carefully. It didn't take long to find what they'd done. A small, sophisticated device had been attached to the room's environmental control system. A quick analysis with his personal scanner confirmed his suspicion. They'd modified the gravity controls. Earth standard was 1G. They'd set his quarters to 2G. Alex shook his head, a small smile playing at his lips. If they'd bothered to research humans properly, they might have chosen a more creative welcome. He approached the control panel, noting the external monitoring device they'd also installed. They were watching, waiting to see him struggle under the doubled gravity. Instead, he accessed the panel and entered an override code, a special authorization granted by Earth Command for exactly such contingencies. The security barriers melted away, giving him full system access. Without hesitation, he entered new parameters. 3G, triple Earth's standard gravity. The effects were immediate. The air felt thicker, his body heavier. Alex took a deep breath, feeling the pleasant strain in his lungs, the reassuring weight pressing down on him. Perfect. He began his routine, first stretching thoroughly, then push-ups, pull-ups on a bar he quickly installed, lunges and core exercises. Every movement was deliberate, controlled, maximizing the resistance offered by the intensified gravitational field. His muscles burned with familiar exertion. Outside in the monitoring room, Zyler and his companions stared at the display in disbelief. Is he exercising? The plasma entity whispered. Impossible, Zyler hissed. The system must be malfunctioning. The rock-like cadet leaned forward, squinting at the readings. It's not malfunctioning. He actually increased it. It's at 3G now. That's insane, the scaled quadruped muttered. Even chronics find 2G challenging for extended periods. Zyler's eyes narrowed. He's bluffing. Has to be. Let's see how long he maintains this charade. But as hours passed, Alex continued his regimen, eventually settling into a meditation pose before finally preparing for sleep, all under the relentless pull of triple Earth gravity. By morning, word had spread throughout the Academy. Cadets who'd barely registered the human's arrival now whispered as he passed. Instructors consulted his file again, searching for overlooked information. Commander Theron requested immediate clarification from Earth Command regarding human physiological capabilities. In the mess hall, Alex sat alone, methodically consuming the nutrient-dense meal allocated to him. He was halfway through when someone set a tray down opposite him. Mind if I join you? The voice was melodic, curious rather than hostile. Alex looked up to see a humanoid cadet with delicate features and skin that seemed to shift colors subtly like the surface of a soap bubble. According to his orientation materials, she was Lyrian, a species known for their empathic abilities and diplomatic prowess. Not at all, Alex replied, gesturing to the seat. I'm Lyra, she said, settling across from him. Third year, Xenolinguistics and Tactical Communications. Alex Ryder. First year, apparently notorious already. She smiled, a surprisingly human expression. You could say that. The entire Academy is talking about the human who tripled his gravity. Is it true? That depends. Alex selected his words carefully. Is it true that a welcoming committee tampered with my environmental controls as some sort of initiation prank? Lyra's skin flushed slightly pink. Embarrassment, Alex guessed. That happens sometimes. Usually to species perceived as. She hesitated. We Alex supplied. Inferior? Unlikely to survive. I was going to say different, she countered, but yes, essentially. Zyler's group particularly enjoys establishing dominance hierarchies early. And now they're confused because their attempt backfired. Lyra tilted her head. More than confused. Scared, though they'd never admit it. No one could figure out how you're doing it. Most species would be crushed under 3G if they evolved in a 1G environment. Alex took another bite of his meal, considering how much to reveal. Humans are more adaptable than the Alliance gives us credit for. That's all. Adaptable enough to function at triple your evolutionary gravity? That's not adaptation, that's... She searched for the word, unprecedented. Before Alex could respond, a shadow fell across their table. Drill Sergeant Quark stood there, all 8 limbs rigid with formality. Cadet. Ryder. Your presence is requested at the combat arena. Immediately. The combat arena was already filled with cadets when Alex arrived. Quark stood in the center, surrounded by training drones and various weapons racks. The sergeant's demeanor had shifted subtly, the dismissive contempt replaced by intense scrutiny. Cadet Ryder, Quark's voice boomed across the space. Since you find standard gravity conditions insufficiently challenging, perhaps you demonstrate your capabilities in a more dynamic environment. Alex recognized the challenge for what it was, a test, potentially a dangerous one. Happy to participate in any standard training exercise, Sergeant. Quark gestured, and the arena's environmental controls hummed to life. The gravity increased steadily, 1.5 G, 2 G, finally settling at 2.5 G. Many of the observing cadets shifted uncomfortably, even those from higher gravity worlds feeling the strain of the sudden increase. Simple exercise, Quark announced. Disable all drones. Avoid getting tagged. Every hit you take is a demerit. Arena gravity will fluctuate during the exercise. His eyes fixed on Alex. Let's see this human adaptability firsthand. The drones activated 12 hovering units equipped with low-power targeting lasers. In standard gravity, a challenging but manageable training scenario. At 2.5 G, with the promise of further fluctuations, it was a brutal test designed to push even experienced cadets to their limits. Alex took a deep breath, centering himself. The weight pressed down, familiar from his private training regimens. He prepared for this. All humans in the Earth Special Forces program had. It was humanity's closely guarded advantage, their response to a galaxy that had dismissed them as physiologically inferior. The first drone darted forward. Alex moved, not with the desperate heaviness most expected, but with practiced precision. His movements were economical, each step calculated to leverage the increased gravity rather than fight against it. He spun low, avoided the targeting beam, and disabled the drone with a perfectly placed strike to its sensor array. The audience fell silent. 2 more drones attacked simultaneously. Alex dropped and rolled, coming up between them, forcing them to recalibrate. As they adjusted, the arena gravity suddenly shifted to 1G, artificially light compared to what he'd been training in. Alex used the momentary advantage, leaping higher than should have been possible, disabling both drones before landing. Quark's facial spines flared in surprise. Without warning, he increased the arena gravity to 3G, matching what Alex had set in his quarters. Several observing cadets braced themselves against the sudden, crushing weight. Alex didn't falter. If anything, his movements became more fluid, more certain. This was the environment he'd been conditioning himself for. The remaining drones coordinated their attack, surrounding him in a classic containment pattern. Alex responded with a series of maneuvers that seemed to defy the oppressive gravity, using the increased weight to amplify the power of his strikes rather than diminish their speed. Within minutes, all 12 drones lay disabled. Alex stood in the center of the arena, breathing heavily but steady, his posture perfect despite the 3G environment. Quark deactivated the gravity enhancement, the arena returning to standard settings. The sudden lightness made several cadets stumble. Alex simply adjusted his stance. Acceptable, Quark stated, his tone carefully neutral despite the extraordinary display they'd witnessed. Dismissed for now, cadet. As Alex left the arena, the whispers followed him, no longer dismissive, but filled with confusion, speculation, and the first hints of respect. He caught sight of Xyler at the edge of the crowd, the blue-skinned cadet's expression a complex mixture of anger and disbelief. Lyra fell into step beside him in the corridor. "That was impressive," she said quietly. "And now everyone's wondering what else humans have been hiding." Alex smiled slightly. "Maybe they should have done their research before playing pranks." "Maybe," she agreed. "But I doubt this is the end of it. Xyler doesn't like being shown up, especially not by someone he's labeled as inferior." "I'm counting on it," Alex replied. Over the next few weeks, Alex's reputation at the Academy evolved rapidly. Initial skepticism gave way to curiosity, then to grudging respect as he consistently outperformed expectations in physical training. His academic performance was equally strong, particularly in tactical problem-solving and adaptive strategy, fields where human creativity proved advantageous. Commander Theron observed this transformation with growing interest. The clarification he'd received from Earth Command had been frustratingly vague. Human physiological capabilities have historically been underreported in official Alliance documentation due to strategic considerations. Cadet Rider represents standard human military preparation. Standard? Theron had served with humans briefly during joint operations. They'd been competent enough, but nothing like what Ryder was demonstrating. Either Earth had been deliberately hiding their species' true potential, or they'd implemented some extraordinary training protocol that produced these results. Either possibility had significant strategic implications. Drill Sergeant Quark had shifted from skepticism to fascination. He designed increasingly difficult training scenarios, often singling Alex out for the most challenging variants. Whether navigating vacuum environments, withstanding extreme temperature fluctuations, or performing complex maneuvers under variable gravity conditions, the human consistently adapted faster than his non-human counterparts. "It doesn't make sense," Quark confided to Commander Theron after a particularly grueling session. "According to everything we know about their species, these performances should be impossible." "Perhaps what we know is incomplete," Theron replied thoughtfully, "or deliberately misleading." Not everyone appreciated Alex's success. Xyler, whose position as top combat specialist was now threatened, had transformed from casual disdain to active hostility. His attempts to undermine the human grew more sophisticated. Equipment malfunctions during Alex's training runs, crucial information missing from his briefings, subtle sabotage of his assignments. Alex weathered these challenges without complaint, often turning them into unexpected advantages. When his environmental suit mysteriously lost oxygen capacity during a vacuum exercise, he completed the course on a single breath, revealing a lung capacity far beyond what human physiology reports suggested possible. When his tactical display failed during a squadron leadership drill, he coordinated his team using improvised visual signals, achieving a record completion time. Throughout these trials, Lyra remained his most consistent ally. Her cultural expertise and linguistic skills helped him navigate the complex social hierarchies of the Academy, while her empathic abilities warned him of particularly dangerous resentments brewing. In return, Alex shared insights about human adaptation techniques that fascinated her academically. "Your entire species trains like this?" she asked one evening as they reviewed stellar cartography in the Academy's observatory dome. "Not every one," Alex admitted, "but those selected for off-world service, yes. Especially those chosen for the Academy. But why keep it secret? The Alliance would value Earth more highly if they knew." Alex looked up at the holographic stars swirling above them. Would they? Or would they see it as a threat? Humans have a complicated history with those perceived as different. We assumed other species might share similar instincts. Lyra considered this. "You're not wrong. The stronger species tend to dominate Alliance politics. If humans suddenly demonstrated unexpected capabilities..." "Exactly," Alex nodded. "Better to be underestimated while we learn the rules of the game." And now, he smiled slightly. Let's just say I'm part of a gradual revelation process. The Academy's training culminated in the Gauntlet, a comprehensive individual challenge that tested every aspect of a cadet's abilities under extreme conditions. Part survival course, part combat simulation, part strategic puzzle, it represented the ultimate assessment of a cadet's potential as an Alliance officer. Zyler had completed his Gauntlet the previous week, setting a new Academy record that had cemented his status despite Alex's rising prominence. The blue-skinned cadet made sure everyone knew about his achievement, particularly when Alex was within earshot. Impossible to beat, he declared loudly in the mess hall, especially for species with limited environmental tolerance. Alex said nothing, simply continuing his preparation. He spent extra hours in the simulation chambers, running scenarios with increasingly difficult parameters. He studied the sparse records of previous gauntlets, identifying patterns and potential weaknesses in the assessment design. And he maintained his personal training regimen in his triple gravity quarters, pushing his already exceptional conditioning even further. The morning of his gauntlet, Commander Theron summoned him for an unusual personal briefing. Cadet Ryder. The commander's 6 eyes fixed on him with unnerving intensity. Your performance at this academy has been unexpected. Thank you, sir, Alex replied. That wasn't necessarily a compliment, Theron clarified. It raises questions. Serious ones. About my capabilities, sir. About Earth's intentions. Theron leaned forward. A species that deliberately understates its military potential for decades, then suddenly reveals advanced capabilities. It concerns those responsible for Alliance security. Alex met the commander's gaze steadily. With respect, sir, humans have simply been careful. Our history taught us that appearing too capable too quickly can provoke fear rather than partnership. We prefer to prove ourselves reliable allies before revealing our full potential. And this full potential, is Cadet Zyler right to be concerned about his record? A slight smile touched Alex's lips. I suppose we'll find out today, sir. The Gauntlet facility occupied an isolated section of the Academy, a massive, reconfigurable environment that could simulate everything from urban combat zones to airless moons, toxic atmospheres to underwater operations. Each cadet faced a uniquely generated course, the parameters adjusted to test specific strengths and target potential weaknesses. Alex stood at the entrance in standard-issue combat gear, surrounded by monitoring equipment. Quark conducted the final briefing. 4 zones, increasing difficulty, the drill sergeant explained, pointing to a holographic map. High-gravity urban combat, 0G asteroid navigation, toxic atmosphere extraction, and variable gravity combat arena. Multiple hostiles, environmental hazards, and tactical decisions throughout. Completion requires neutralizing threats, recovering specific objectives, and reaching extraction within time parameters. Alex nodded, mentally reviewing his preparations. Previous record is 42 minutes, 17 seconds, Quark added unnecessarily. They both knew whose record it was. The average is over 3 hours, with a 30% failure rate. Understood, Sergeant. Quark's facial spines flexed in what Alex had come to recognize as the draconian equivalent of a smile. Your gauntlet has been customized. Commander's orders. Of course it had. Alex had expected nothing less. I'm ready, Sergeant. We shall see. Quark activated the entry sequence. Gauntlet commences in 3, 2, 1. The doorway opened to darkness. Alex stepped through into the unknown. Zone 1 materialized around him. A ruined cityscape under heavy gravity. The crushed and twisted architecture suggesting a world far denser than Earth. His body immediately felt the pull, at least 3G, possibly more. Streams of data scrolled across his tactical display. Hostile locations, objective markers, environmental readings. Alex moved immediately, adapting to the crushing gravity with practiced ease. This was familiar territory. He'd been training at 3G for weeks now. He navigated through collapsed structures and narrow passages, using the environment to his advantage. When combat drones appeared, he engaged with efficiency rather than flashy moves, conserving energy while ensuring clean neutralizations. The urban zone's objective, a secure data module, was housed in a central structure guarded by automated defenses. Rather than a frontal assault, Alex identified a structural weakness, used precisely calculated explosive charges to create a temporary access point, retrieved the objective, and exited before the building's integrity failed completely. Zone 1, complete in 8 minutes, 42 seconds. The transition to Zone 2 was abrupt. Gravity disappeared entirely as he entered a simulated asteroid field. Here, momentum and spatial orientation became critical factors. Most cadets struggled with the cognitive dissonance of true zero-G combat, where conventional tactics failed and the concept of up became meaningless. Alex had trained extensively for this environment. He used minimal thruster bursts for maximum effect, anticipating trajectories and interception points rather than chasing targets. When hostile drones swarmed, he transformed their own momentum into weapons, causing collisions or redirecting their attacks to hit other units. The zone's retrieval objective, a damaged communications satellite, required precision navigation through a debris field of shifting, tumbling hazards. Alex calculated optimal paths, timing his movements between lethal obstacles with mathematical precision. He secured the objective and reached the extraction point without a single error. Zone 2, complete in 10 minutes, 28 seconds. The atmosphere of Zone 3 hit him like a physical force. Visible toxic gases swirling in sickly patterns, visibility reduced to mere meters. His breathing apparatus activated automatically, but the environmental suit reported elevated risk levels. This zone had been specifically calibrated to test endurance and sensory adaptation under hostile conditions. Alex relied less on visual data and more on tactical readings, developing a mental map of the hazardous landscape. He moved deliberately, avoiding the densest toxin concentrations, using sensor data to identify safe paths. Combat in these conditions required extraordinary spatial awareness. Enemies appeared as shadows in the poisonous fog, attacking from multiple directions. The extraction objective, a simulated injured operative, required careful transportation through the deadliest section of the zone. Alex improvised environmental shielding for the injured drone, calculated the optimal route that balanced speed against exposure, and delivered it safely to the extraction point despite a series of system failures clearly designed to test his resilience. Zone 3, complete in 11 minutes, 36 seconds. The final zone, the variable gravity combat arena, represented the Gauntlet's ultimate challenge. Here, gravity shifted unpredictably between crushing intensity and near weightlessness, sometimes changing multiple times in seconds. Combat drones in this zone were the most advanced, adapting to tactics and learning from failures. Something felt different here. The patterns more unpredictable, the difficulty notably higher than standard parameters. Alex realized this zone had been specially modified, likely at Commander Theron's direction. A final, definitive test of human capabilities. The first gravity shift hit without warning, from standard to 4G in an instant. Alex dropped to a stable position, absorbing the impact. 3 combat drones attacked simultaneously, coordinating their movements despite the extreme conditions. He disabled them efficiently, using the high gravity to amplify strike impacts. The environment shifted again, sudden weightlessness replacing crushing force. Alex adjusted instantly, using subtle movements to control his trajectory while engaging the next wave of attackers. Back and forth the gravity fluctuated, each change more extreme than the last, reaching levels that would incapacitate most species. Halfway through the zone, disaster struck. A gravity shift coincided with drone attacks from multiple vectors, forcing Alex into an exposed position. A targeting beam caught him squarely, the first hit he'd taken in the gauntlet. The failure stung, but he compartmentalized the disappointment, refocusing on the remaining challenges. The final sequence presented an unexpected ethical component. The extraction point was guarded by a drone simulating a surrendering combatant. Many cadets, focused on completion times, simply neutralized this final obstacle. Alex took the extra seconds to secure the surrendered unit according to Alliance protocols before accessing the extraction point. A soft tone signaled completion. The environment dissolved around him, returning to the neutral staging area where Quark and a small crowd of officials waited. The drill sergeant's expression was unreadable as he examined the final statistics. Total time, 38 minutes, 26 seconds, Quark announced, his voice betraying a hint of what might have been admiration. New Academy record. A murmur ran through the assembled observers. Alex maintained his composure despite his exhaustion, standing at attention until formally dismissed. One demerit recorded for sustaining enemy fire in Zone 4, Quark continued. However, full bonus points awarded for ethical handling of the surrender scenario. He looked up from the data. Overall score exceeds previous record by significant margin. Congratulations, Cadet Ryder. Alex caught sight of Commander Theron at the back of the group, the commander's 6 eyes blinking in their species' expression of thoughtful surprise. Near him stood Xyler, the former record holder's face frozen in disbelief. Thank you, Sergeant, Alex replied formally. Permission to return to quarters? Granted, Quark nodded. Report for medical assessment in 2 hours. As Alex left the Gauntlet facility, Lyra fell in a step beside him. The whole Academy's watching the results, she said quietly. You've changed things, permanently. That was the idea, Alex admitted, allowing himself a small smile of satisfaction. The remaining weeks of the Academy term passed in a blur of advanced training, theoretical examinations, and increasing integration with his fellow cadets. The change in how he was perceived was dramatic, from curiosity to respected peer, even for many who had initially dismissed humans entirely. Xyler maintained his distance, his initial hostility gradually transforming into a complicated respect. During the final tactical exercise, when they were assigned as opposing team leaders, he acknowledged Alex with a formal salute before the simulation began, a gesture of professional recognition that meant more than any verbal concession. Graduation day arrived with appropriate ceremony. The Academy's Grand Hall filled with dignitaries, military officials, and representatives from dozens of Alliance worlds. Alex noticed with surprise that an Earth delegation had arrived, including several officers he recognized from his training days, watching with barely contained pride. Commander Theron took the podium, his imposing figure commanding immediate attention. Another cycle concludes, he began, his deep voice echoing through the hall. As is tradition, I offer observations on the lessons we ourselves have learned while teaching the next generation of Alliance officers. His multiple eyes scanned the assembled graduates before settling on Alex. This cycle has been particularly instructive. We were reminded of a fundamental truth often overlooked in military assessment. Appearance and preconception are unreliable metrics of capability. A murmur ran through the crowd. Everyone knew who he was referring to. The Alliance has categorized species based on observable physiological traits for centuries. High-gravity evolution equates to strength. Multiple limbs suggest superior combat capability. Natural armor indicates resilience. These assessments have shaped our strategic thinking and, occasionally, our biases. Theron's gaze shifted to the Earth delegation. Cadet Ryder has demonstrated that such categorizations may be fundamentally flawed. Human adaptability, their capacity to train beyond apparent physiological limits, to thrive in supposedly unsuitable conditions, to transform perceived weaknesses into strategic advantages, represents a quality our assessment matrices have failed to properly value. He turned back to the graduates. Effective immediately, Academy training protocols will be revised. All cadets, regardless of origin, will have the option to undergo enhanced gravity conditioning. We will incorporate human adaptive methodologies into standard training regimens. And most importantly, we will reconsider our assumptions about capability and potential. Alex stood with the other graduates as they received their commissions, the golden insignia of an Alliance officer gleaming against his uniform. As the ceremony concluded, Commander Theron approached him directly. "Lieutenant Ryder," he acknowledged, using Alex's new rank. "I've submitted a formal recommendation to the Alliance Military Council regarding human classification. I expect significant revisions to the current assessment." "Thank you, Commander," Alex replied. "That was our hope." Theron's head tilted slightly. Was this a coordinated demonstration, then? Earth strategically revealing capabilities after decades of concealment. Alex smiled. "Let's call a necessary correction of misunderstandings. Humans have always thrived on being underestimated. It's practically our evolutionary strategy. A strategy that may have outlived its usefulness," Theron observed. "The Alliance now sees humanity's potential. Expectations will adjust accordingly." "We're counting on it," Alex said. "True partnership requires mutual respect." Later that evening, Alex returned to his quarters to pack for the journey home. The room's control panel still showed his preferred setting, 3G. He had lived, studied, and trained under triple Earth gravity for his entire academy tenure, a secret advantage that had now become public knowledge. He placed a hand on the panel, considering. With a few taps, he reset the environment to standard academy settings, 1G, equivalent to Earth normal. The sudden lightness was almost disorienting after so many months. He felt as though he might float away, his body seemingly weightless after adapting to the constant pressure. A soft chime announced a visitor. The door slid open to reveal Lyra, dressed in her new lieutenant's uniform. "All packed?" she asked, glancing at his nearly empty quarters. "Just finishing," Alex replied. "I hear you've been assigned to Diplomatic Corps training." She nodded. "And you're returning to Earth before your deep space posting?" "Brief homecoming, then back to the stars." He shouldered his pack. "Different ships, different missions, but the same Alliance." "You changed everything, you know," she said suddenly. "The way they see humans, the way we train, maybe even the future of Alliance military doctrine." Alex shook his head. "I just revealed what was already there. Humans aren't special. We're just good at adapting to whatever the universe throws at us. Always have been, including practical jokes involving gravity." Her tone was teasing. "Especially those," he laughed. "Sometimes the best response to being underestimated is to exceed expectations so dramatically that no one makes the same mistake twice." They walked together to the transport bay, where ships waited to carry new officers to their assignments across the galaxy. The Earth vessel stood apart, smaller than most, less imposing, but with its own elegant efficiency that Alex had come to recognize as characteristically human. "Until our paths cross again, Lieutenant," Lyra offered the formal Alliance farewell, her hand forming the traditional gesture. "Sooner rather than later," Alex replied, returning the gesture before adding a human handshake. As he boarded the transport that would carry him home, Alex took one last look at the academy, the institution that had begun as a challenge and ended as a triumph. The gravity of his homeworld would feel strange after so long at triple strength, but the lessons learned would remain. Sometimes, the greatest strength comes from being pushed beyond perceived limits. And sometimes, the best response to a joke is to take it seriously, and then triple it.